tighten your lines as we get ready to sail the 7 seas on the Political Pirate Podcast. Join Captain Ted Yoho and the salty dog John Martin as they search far and wide for the greatest treasure of all, the truth. From local Florida news to nationwide stories and the globe beyond, we've got it all mapped out. Now here's your hosts, the salty dog John Martin and Captain Ted Yoho.
Well, good morning, everybody, and welcome to the 3 Ps, the Political Pirate Podcast, with yours truly, the old salty dog, and the captain of our ship, Ted Yoho. Well, let me just tell you, in case you're wondering, I'm having an internet outage in my area. Not my fault. I did pay my bill. So the bad news is there's no video from my end. The good news is you get to stare at Ted the whole time and not me.
The whole time.
Good morning, Ted.
John's incognito. I'm doing great, John. Sorry you're not here visually, but I can hear your voice loud and clear.
Maybe I should do some kind of AI thing that makes me look real sexy and slim and all that kind of stuff, but probably couldn't get that through either. Well, ladies and gentlemen, before we get really into it, I just want to tell you to support our show. Make that call you see come across your screen from time to time. Call Freddie. Make sure you get on board, like what we're doing, share what we're doing. And we've got a brand new sponsor we've had for a little over a week now, Archer Automotive. Tell us all about that, Ted.
Archer Automotive. They're located at 15901 Southwest Archer Road. It's about 16 minutes, if that, from Publix on Archer Road, Southwest Archer Road. I don't even think it's that far. It's probably less than 5 miles out. And you can't find a better group of mechanics that are honest, up to date. They can fix any problem you have, from car tires to brakes, transmissions, any motors, anything you need. And the thing I always liked about them is they're reliable, they're trustworthy, and they do a great job at a great price. Their phone number is 352-495-2485. And Richard Fiegel and Joe that are manning the shop there, I can't say enough about them, and we thank them for being sponsors of our show.
Well, Ted, Sunday is Mother's Day, so I want to wish all the mothers out there a happy Mother's Day. And we've got a update for you that is just perfect for Mother's Day, and that is that White House Press Secretary Carolyn Leavitt has just announced that she's given birth to her second child. It just happened yesterday, a daughter, Viviana. So congratulations to Karen, her family, her husband, and all that. Any thoughts on that, Ted?
No, I think it's great that Caroline Leavitt has had another baby and just doing what the Lord instructed us to do, live long and prosper and propagate. So congratulations to Caroline and her husband.
Multiply.
Yep.
Well, I'm going to make you a bet right now, Ted. You may not want to take it, but I'm going to bet you
Bring it on, John.
She is out less time. She's out less time on her maternity leave than Mayor, what's his name, Pete Buttigieg or Buttigieg or whatever. Remember, he was out for 6 weeks on maternity leave with his baby and, man to man, so to speak. I bet she's back before he came back.
I can't even, I don't even want to talk about that. I still can't get that visual of him with his man breasts on and just the proud daddy nursing. I guess in times there's need for that, but I think in reality, God kind of created those body parts to be used in a special way and put them on the proper gender. And, I'm sure he's a great father, but Caroline Leavitt, congratulations to you and your husband and the birth of your new child, and look forward to having you back when you're ready. And I agree with you, John. I don't think she'll stay out 6 weeks.
I don't think she will either. I think she'll probably be back in a couple of weeks, baby in tow or whatever. It's amazing. It's amazing too, and I know she's not a cabinet member, but if you just look at, and we've talked about it before, so I won't go too deep into it. If you look at the cabinet, because when President Biden was in there, I said at the time that this may be the worst cabinet that I have ever seen. And I think the flip side of that is that President Trump has probably appointed one of the best cabinets that we've ever seen. So it's amazing the dichotomy there as well.
Well, it really is. And if you go back to Obama, I didn't mean Obama, but we'll talk about Obama. You look at the cabinet he had; it was anti-American cabinet. And then you go to Biden. It is definitely, I'm 71 years old. It was definitely the worst presidential administration, from the president to the vice president to the cabinet, I have ever experienced in my life. And I'm saying this to the people out there listening. We've got a steady listener, Michael Cruz, up in Maryland, that shares our program with his students and with his email chain. This is the worst. That was the worst administration that this country has ever had in my lifetime, and I don't know if there's any worse throughout history. And that's why this show is so important. I mean, these elections matter so much, especially when you see what's waiting in the wings. The Obama, and I know you've got something coming up on Obama, a video of him. That whole agenda, anti-American agenda, that's led to the Zohran Madanis, to the AOCs, to the communist mayor in Albany, New York, to the communist in Washington, in Seattle. They're waiting in the wings for their next election to strike. And when they strike, they're going to pack the courts. They're going to redistrict. They're going to change America forever. And this goes back to Obama, fundamentally transforming America. Just think of those 12 years of Obama and the 4 years of Biden, which really were Obama. Look at the changes America went through. And you want to know why we have such a political divide? Because it was a rapid change that America was fighting against. And they got power in government, and so they were trying to make them permanent. Think of the DEI, the wokeism, what our schools were teaching, and that the NEA, the National Teachers Association or Union, had students transported to protest on May 1st about how bad America is. So back to you, John.
Well, you mentioned Obama, and I don't have this particular video teed up, but I don't know if you saw, just I think yesterday or day before, he came out with he was being interviewed by the guy that's been canceled now. I'm trying to think of his name, not Jimmy Kimmel, the other crazy guy on late night, but he was being interviewed, Obama, and Colbert, yeah. And Obama literally had the audacity to criticize President Trump for weaponizing the justice system against political opponents. Well, I wonder if true, where could he possibly have gotten? Could it possibly be that Obama weaponized the Department of Justice like no other president before or since against his political opponents? I mean, they literally tapped the phones at first when you were in there. They literally had the IRS after the Tea Party. And I think while you were actually in Congress, I mean, they literally tried to put President Trump in prison. Going all the way to Biden, they went and through the drawers at his private home, the underwear drawer, his wife, for God's sakes, to literally have the audacity, Ted, to stand in front of the cameras and say that Trump weaponized the justice system is just, I mean, that is some moxie to be able to do that.
It really is. But that's Obama. That's the Democrats, John. Whatever's going on now that they rail against is what they created. For him to come out and say that they hate to see this administration, Trump, weaponize the Justice Department, give me a break. Go back and watch the documentary Hillary's America and look at what happened. Or the attack of it'll come to me here. It was a documentary on President Trump and his first administration, and it is as accurate as you'll ever see. Obama, he led the charge against Trump, along with the 17 different intelligence agencies. They were the ones that weaponized. They were the ones that were trying to hook Trump and call him a Russian agent. And all the garbage, the Steele dossier, all that time that we spent in Congress that neutered the Trump administration. Thank God he got done as much as he did. But they were the ones that had done that. Biden or Obama needs to be brought up on treason charges at some time because he instigated it, he implemented it, and he empowered those the FBI and all the agencies to go after Trump because they knew, not they, Obama knew that his agenda of fundamentally transforming America would come to an end under Trump, and that's why they went so hard after him. And I think. I'm not going to say they were behind the assassination attempts, but they sure would have benefited from that if President Trump had been assassinated. And it's not stopped. And this is why it's so important that people understand this because their agenda has not gone away. It's just been put on pause. And you'll allow me a few minutes here to let me give you an analogy. The difference between the Republicans and the Democrats. The Democrats are lockstep in their agenda. Their agenda is, especially since the Obama years, is to fundamentally transform America. And so picture a football field. They have a wheelbarrow with all their social programs, with all their anti-American stuff. The Zoran Madani's coming into power. So that's in their wheelbarrow. So when they're in power, they take the wheelbarrow and they march down the football field to the end zone where they can score points. When they lose power, they put a tarp over that to cover up policies. The Republicans come in, and we're like the ball in the old-fashioned pinball machine where you put it in, and the flippers are going back and forth, and the ball's going back and forth, and we're like, well, we want to go against fossil or green energy. We're going to do this. We're going to get rid of DEI, but we're all over the place. And when we lose, the Democrats come in, they take the tarp off the wheelbarrow, and they just start doing their programs again as they march closer to the end zone. We don't have a long-term strategy for the Republican Party. And I say that our strategy should be for the security of America, for making America stronger in the future for the next generations. And we don't have that. And that's why the Democrats, I say their programs are in the wing. They're not gone. They're just put on pause in the wheelbarrow with the tarp over it to cover their program. So when they get back in power, they're going to run harder and they're going to do things like stacking the Supreme Court and those other things to get rid of the filibuster. So I'm going to turn it back to you, John.
Yeah, well, Ted, when you were just talking about that, I got to thinking about it because you've heard this term a lot lately.
That's my job.
May Day celebration. Yeah, going back to when I was in high school and stuff, and even before high school, one of the required courses was Americanism versus communism. Well,
yep, I remember that well.
Really, I mean, if you just take the Democrats out of the word Democrat out of the picture and Republican out of the picture, forget political parties. The struggle in America right now is literally Americanism versus communism. I mean, that's really what the Democratic Party, and I'm not talking about all Democrats. I want to make that clear. I'm talking about the leadership of the Democratic Party has become basically an offshoot of the Communist Party, from what I see.
There's no doubt about it.
I hate to say that, but it's true.
I remember when I was in Congress, I was on Bob Rose, plugging another great conservative show, and I was saying how this Democrat Party is not Democrats like we knew. They're at best socialists, but more communist. And I felt a little bit bold saying that, like, well, that's kind of strong language, but it sure wasn't, John. They have turned into a communist party. They really are. And how can that happen in America when we fought wars to prevent the spread of communism? And people might think that's too strong of language, but it's really not. When you look at their policies, and all you have to do is look at the movement that's how it's taking over, like New York City. And, Obama is leading the charge on this because he wants to, his goal is to fundamentally transform America. I agree with you.
Yeah, well, because we're going to go to commercial break here in a few minutes, and we're going to talk very specific about some of the issues we just kind of got into. But before we do that, I do want to mention somebody who people, may have mixed feelings about, but we did lose a legend just a couple of days ago in American history now, our lifetime, Ted Turner. Ted Turner passed away, and I know a lot of people connect him and Jane Fonda and all that. I have a slightly different view of some people maybe than Ted Turner because I think, he's certainly up for criticism for certain things. I don't think he is as political as a lot of people want to put him in. But I think if you look at Ted Turner, he is, his life was the epitome of the American dream, really. I mean, the guy had somewhat, not, I wouldn't say like poor background, but he came from a modest, probably upper middle class background, turned a very small company into an empire, that kind of thing, which is not easy to do. He won the World Cup. He changed network television and all that forever. So I think at least from my perspective, we do need to acknowledge that he passed and that he made an impact, good, bad, or what. Certainly made an impact. And I just kind of wonder what your thoughts in general are. I know you wish somebody ill for sure, but what your thoughts about Ted Turner in general are, Ted?
Well, I think overall, I think positive of him. I mean, there were some things obviously he did. I didn't agree. Number one, anybody marrying Jane Fonda. Um, but he was a maverick. He was a visionary. He saw things and he would look at them and say, why not? Let's do this. He created CNN, and CNN was kind of a nobody at the time. 24-hour news cycle. People said it would never work, but it really flourished when the Iraq and Afghanistan wars broke out. And everybody remembers the reports by Bernard Shaw, the anchor who brought us war for the first time in living color, which is not a good thing. No wars are good, but it was right there. And so it took off and started a whole 24-hour, 7 days a week news, which some people will cuss. But you look at Ted Turner with the sailboat racing, and he won that. And he was had celebrated so much he couldn't hold on to his bottle of champagne. To me, he epitomized that old generation of Americans that knew no boundaries and they went after their goals and dreams. Owners of the Braves and the Atlanta Braves, and he just made landmarks wherever he went. Speaking of land, he was one of the largest landowners in America. And so we salute him. We salute what he did. And don't forget the Turner Classic Movies, TCM. He bought out some studios, bought their films, and put on the old reruns that really flourished too. And we thank him for that because I have watched a lot of those old movies.
Yeah, and another thing he did, he left Jane Fonda in that divorce enough money that we don't, even though we've been hearing from her here lately, we don't have to hear from her all the time because she doesn't really need the money. So that's a blessing in and of itself. Well, Ted, we're going to take a quick commercial break. And, before we do, just remind them, make that call Freddie. Become a sponsor of our show so you can help us educate, motivate, and activate people. Take us to break, Ted.
Yeah, and usually or John will broadcast from the Steve Spurrier Gridiron Grill in Gainesville, and we want to make sure you visit there. You'll see the legendary Steve Spurrier occasionally come through there. He's always great to see. And please visit Archer Automotive. Call them for your car needs at 352-495-2485. and tell them we said hello. And wherever you go to get your service and whatever you get done, you will be thankful you went to Archer Automotive. So we'll see you after break.
Hi there, this is Coach Steve Spurrier, and I want to let you know that by popular demand, Spurrier's Gridiron Grill's delicious brunch is now served in a premium buffet. You have spoken, we have listened, and we're now serving Gainesville's only elevated buffet, complete with an omelet station, ginger sage chicken sausage, shredded short rib, plus you can enjoy bottomless mimosas and Bloody Marys. So join us every Saturday and Sunday from 11 to 3 for the best brunch in town.
And we're back to the 3 Ps, the Political Pirate Podcast, with yours truly, the old salty dog, John Martin, and of course, the captain of our pirate ship, Mr. Ted Yoho. If you're just tuning in, you're not seeing my smiling face because, and I did pay my bill, but my internet, they have an outage in the beautiful town of Hawthorne, so I'm having to come audio only. Well, Ted, let's move into something that we talked a little bit about Obama before the break. But he put out a video just this week about his soon-to-be open presidential, I guess you'd call it, library. To me, it looks like a missile launcher. But I want to play this video, him and Mark Hamill, who, of course, is Star Wars fame, and then we'll come back and make a couple of points about it. Check this out.
President Obama.
Mark, I told you to stop contacting me like this.
Oh, I just wanted to ask, when can I come to the Presidential Center?
Well, there you have it, Ted. I know you've already probably booked reservations for Chicago because Obama's library opened May 6th, I guess. And by the way, you need ID to get into his library.
Imagine
not
that.
To vote,
Imagine.
but to get into his library. But Mark Hamill of Star Wars fame, who is just a total libtard, is obviously supporting Obama. They did a separate video where they were actually on the grounds. But, I want to ask you your thoughts about that, because then I want to show you a post that Mark Hamill made and has already taken down, by the way, made it on that Blue Sky, which is the liberal Twitter, I suppose. And anyway, well, maybe we should show that picture first, and then we'll come back.
I'm not sure I saw that one. Which one was that?
Can you show that? It's Obama it's Trump in a grave.
Oh, is that right? No.
I don't know if it's up there or not. Yeah, okay, it's up there.
But we'll get that up there.
Oh, okay.
But I tell you what, folks, for Mark Hamill to do that, that's as bad as Jimmy Kimmel fawning about Melania Trump looking so nicely as a new widow. The left, they always talk about we've got to lower the rhetoric, but they're the ones doing the rhetoric. It's just like Obama, saying how, everything, they blame the current situation and the weaponization of the Justice Department on Trump when they're the ones that are doing it. So this is where you've got to really pay attention to what they're saying, and they're criticizing the Republicans is exactly what they are doing, and they're going to continue when they get back, but they're going to put it on steroids because they are threatened now. And what we need is a leader that comes up and unifies America, get the political crap out of there, and worry about what's best for America, not a political ideology. And the Obama administration and people that support them are anti-American towards against the constitutional republic this country is founded on, that has prospered for 250 years. And they want to tear it down, and they want to blame all the good things about America, the capitalism, the ability like Ted Turner to go from nowhere to become very wealthy, one of the most wealthy people in America. They want to tear that down and say it's because of him and people like him that you're not successful, because that mean Republican Party that supports capitalism, they're the ones suppressing you. And then they get these people fall for that, like the Madamis that get people to vote for them, saying these people have suppressed you, and we're going to give free buses, we're going to give free grocery stores, and it's don't fall for it. It tears this country apart. And then think about beyond your lifetime, if you're going to have kids or grandkids, what kind of a country are you going to leave them? Back to you, Johnny.
Yeah, well, and I apologize for it's my fault for not having the picture. So I'll post it on our Facebook pages after the show is over. But what it is it's an AI generated picture that, as I say, Hamill put up on his I guess it's called Blue Sky, some kind of, it's like the liberal Twitter. It shows President Trump laying like in a coffin or in a grave with a tombstone and flowers all around it. I mean, they're just not going to stop, Ted, until they want, the Democrats want President Trump dead. I'm just going to call it like it is. And the thing is, can you imagine, Ted, that if we're talking about Obama, can you imagine if Republicans, any Republican leaders or supporters actually put AI generated stuff about Obama up like they did with Trump with a bloody head, all that kind of thing? I mean, it's just insane. Think about this, and I think you were in Congress at the time, and I don't remember the gentleman's name, but during one of President Obama's speeches at Congress there, his State of the Union speech, the guy shouted out, "You lie." And I didn't like that myself. That's my good friend Joe Wilson, but you would have thought the world you would have thought the world had ended after that. But think about the way they act now in Congress, where they literally stand down Trump. They, stand up. It's just unbelievable the difference between how the Republicans are treated if they do something out of line versus the Democrats. It's just crazy.
Go back to that video that was apparently out of the Trump administration about the Lion King, and it had the Obamas as monkeys or girl. I didn't see it, but look at the outrage about that, and it's a one-way street. It's their way or the highway. Get out of here. And they want to do that. They're the ones that want to rewrite history, and they want to take away America, the direction that we've come for 250 years, and they want to make it a socialist utopia. And they use it like Venezuela, socialist utopia is what they wanted, the AOCs of the world, and we know how well that turned out. So don't fall for this stuff. Success is not easy, but it sure is worth it, and it's worth fighting for. Freedoms and liberties, we have to fight to maintain those things that we all have prospered from. Even the people on the left, they wouldn't be where they were had it not been for the liberties and freedoms of this country, because they sure couldn't get that kind of outrage that they have and talk about it in the open if they were in Iran. Just ask the Iranian people.
Yeah, well, pretty much everything they're doing in the streets these days would not be allowed in any of the countries.
Absolutely not.
Any flag that they're waving. Here's the thing I would say, Ted. If you watch any of these demonstrations, the one thing you don't see is American flags. I would be willing to bet you that any flag you see them waving out there, if you went to that country where that flag is, you would not be able to do what they're doing right here in the United States. No matter what the flag.
Absolutely not. That's a good point you just brought up, because, I do a lot with foreign affairs still. I just got invited to go up to a think tank. It's the Council of Foreign Relationships, which I'm not a fan of. They got the Hillary Clintons and Susan Rice's up there, and I've been to those, and I'm the outspoken conservative against them. But I'm going to be up there in the first part of June, and it's about China and U.S. relationships. And so I really look forward to this. But I was just reading, and I've known this, that China has police offices here in the United States that are monitoring Chinese citizens that are speaking out against China, against their doctrine, against Xi Jinping, and against the Communist Party, and they're arresting people. Hong Kong has one too that is going after Hong Kong dissidents, and they have a bounty on these people of $125,000 to arrest them and bring them back to China. And when they go back to China, they'll either fall into the re-education camps or they'll fall into the forced organ harvesting camps. Well, it's really not a camp because you're not going to enjoy a camp that takes your heart out for very long. And so the point is, you look at the authoritarian regimes, China, you look at Iran, killed 40,000 of their own people because they protested the government. You look at Cuba, you look at, don't even talk about North Korea, because if you don't clap loud enough and they see it on video, you're executed when Kim Jong-un speaks. So that's where the world is going. That's where the communists want to take you. And all you have to do is read about Soviet Russia under Stalin and Lenin and find out how well that treated their citizens. So the people that vote Zoran Madani into power, or these other people, you better wake up, because they're not going to be your friends. They're going to use you as a useful pawn until they get what they want. Back to you, John.
Well, Ted, let's talk a little bit about the Iran war, because obviously it's in the news on a daily basis. They had a few interesting developments yesterday. Apparently, we got attacked by Iran. We'll talk about that more in a minute. But, I put the title of this Iran war on or off. And because, Donald Trump, is he a great communicator? Depends on how you look at it, because Reagan was classified as the great communicator and everything else. But Donald Trump, the way he's conducting it, and this is not really a criticism, it's more of an observation. I can see why people are somewhat confused. I think that's part of his strategy, but he does give out kind of mixed messages to the public and the news. And I think it's not because he's necessarily trying to do that to the American people, but it's part of his strategy with the media and with Iran. So, the left hand doesn't know what the right hand is doing. But what's about in general, and then we'll get some specifics about how President Trump communicates stuff for public consumption.
No, I mean, you contrast that to Obama. Obama was secretively showing you in one hand what you thought he was doing, but behind the scenes, he was doing something else. The difference with Trump is he says, he's talking his thoughts as he moves. He's very flippant in his personality. And a case in point would be if you go back to Venezuela, when it got out that we were doing covert operations, and he was asked about that. He goes, yeah, we're doing covert operations in Venezuela. Well, not anymore, Mr. President. You just said we were doing these, so they're not secretive anymore. So he speaks what's on his mind, and there's a plus in that, but there's also a negative because of the confusion that comes, and it keeps people on edge. And I'm thinking to keep adversaries on edge is probably a good thing, but long-term certainty for businesses, for people investing in America, for making plans, it's not a good thing. So the Iran war you were asking, and this is something, according to the Department of War, Pete Hegseth, and President Trump, we had eliminated all their offensive capabilities. Well, we find that's not true. So that creates doubt in the American people, creates doubt in our allies too. Does America really know what's going on? And so I think we need to be better at that. I'm not a fan of going into Iran. I don't want Iran to have a nuclear bomb. But here we are, we're in this. And I hope he goes after any type of resistance, not resistance, but attack on American. I hope they annihilate wherever that came from. And I would do it hard and I would do it fast. And you have to do it like we did with the Japanese and the Germans. There was so much pressure on them that they had no way out, and they relented. And now that they're in our top 10 trading partners, we've got a great relationship with them, other than the current trade issues and NATO and things like that. But they're not at war with us. So President Trump, you just need to put the pressure on that you've opened this can of worms. We need to go fishing and get rid of the worms.
Yeah, well, the latest statements coming from the president yesterday about what happened. Apparently, we had two or three destroyers going through the strait, and they came under fire. And then we retaliated and took some of their stuff out, maybe sank a few of their boats. It's still a little unclear. But the president actually said that the ceasefire is holding, which I can understand why the American people would be like, and even the media, not defending them, would be like confused about that, because a ceasefire would imply there's no fire, but there still is. In fact, President Trump, when he was visiting some construction workers at the National Mall, because they're redoing the reflecting pool there, he said, talking about Iran, he said, they trifled with us today and we blew them away. And he said that to them, but about an hour earlier, he was ready to leave the White House on the lawn. He said the ceasefire is holding. So I can understand why people are confused about that.
Sure. And part of that is his strategy. I know that for a fact. It's like when he told the South Koreans he was going to pull out of the Chorus, which is the U.S. Korean free trade deal. I mean, they were all up in arms, and I've told that story before. And what he did is he offered a bad deal. They got upset, gnashing of teeth, turning their heads. They struck a new deal, and so we've got a stronger relationship with them. And that's what he's doing here in Iran. He's keeping them off their game, and there will be severe consequences the more they become emboldened to attack any of our military installations, personnel, arm the Navy ships. Trump, I am convinced, he will come and they will regret that they ever did that.
Yeah, well, the thing that I worry about, Ted, because that I've made a statement, and I'm pretty sure you agree with me on it, that I believe that if Iran had a nuclear weapon, they would use it. And that really, if you believe as I do on that, then pretty much anything would go to prevent that, because, I mean, nuclear, we know what would happen there. But my question, Ted, is, do modern day Americans, everyday Americans, do we have now the patience for the Trump strategy? Because, World War II lasted years, conflicts have lasted years. This has only been, a couple of months plus, and people are already saying, when are we going to stop it and everything else? So I worry, do people actually have the patience for the Trump strategy?
No, I mean, that's why we've got fast foods, John. People don't want to wait for food. They go into a drive-through and order something. You've got it in minutes. So society has changed. But then when you get back to some basics, liberty, freedom, all the protections of the amendments we have, those things take effort to preserve and protect. And people don't realize that until those things are under threat or they start losing those. Then their patience becomes a lot better. But when things are going smooth in our country, you look at our country, compare it to Israel, Gaza, Ukraine, those people are being bombed every day, or were. And then you look in the Middle Eastern countries where there's active slave markets, where women can't get educated beyond the 6th grade, and then they're used pretty much as chattel, in slave markets. That happens all around the world, John. We in America don't have a clue what some of these other countries do. When I was in Israel, they had the red alerts that are on. It's an app on your phone that tells you when incoming missiles were coming from Hamas or Hezbollah, any of those terrorist groups. And it was just mind-boggling, because you talk to a parent that's got 4 or 5 children, they're in the schoolyard, you've got 2 near you and 3 away, and that alarm goes off. Which child do you grab or don't grab to get them in? And I'm like, you know what? We are so blessed in our country because we don't have to worry about those things. And that's really what having a strong country that's solvent, that has a strong agenda of where we're going and a strong leader to carry that through, and the support of Congress and the American people. And that's something that is being lost, and goes back to what you're asking. Do we have the patience? Not until it's tested, John.
Yeah, well, Ted, along that same lines, I wonder, do really Americans, because, we talked about Ted Turner a little bit earlier. One thing, when CNN first got started, it was kind of the first time that we really saw in-depth coverage of situations around the world. And that they've even gotten away from that to a certain extent. But I always was fascinated by that. But I want to play this video here. We've played it before. It goes back to, I think, the late 50s, early 60s. Because my question for American people really is, do we really now realize just how dangerous the world we live in actually is? Let's play this video. I think you might be in it, Ted, but that's another story. But let's play this video.
That's me pushing Carolyn up against the brick wall there.
Check this out, because this is an old-time video. Check this out.
Be sure and remember what Bert the Turtle just did, friends, because every one of us must remember to do the same thing. That's what this film is all about. Duck and cover. Paul and Patty know this. No matter where they go or what they do, they always try to remember what to do if the atom bomb explodes right then. It's a bomb. Duck and cover. Sundays, holidays, vacation time, we must be ready every day, all the time, to do the right thing if the atomic bomb explodes. Duck and cover. That's the first thing to do. Duck and cover. First, you duck. And then you cover. You duck and cover tight. Duck and cover under the table. It's a bomb.
I mean, Ted, back when that video was playing, that people realized that there was, because it was coming after World War II, and people realized that we could be attacked. We were attacked with Pearl Harbor, that type of stuff. But I wonder today, Ted, do people really totally understand collectively as Americans just how fragile our system truly is? As strong as it may appear, it literally could go away overnight. We've seen that with the blackouts and stuff like that in the past. I don't think people realize how dangerous the world is, and how fragile our system is, and how it could literally change in a day.
In a day. It could change in a day. I mean, we've talked to Freddie several times, Freddie Wiebe, who is a master at putting these programs together, and we thank him. But he's been in 3 different countries where the currency collapsed, and it changed overnight with him. He saw his parents go through that, and how fragile this is. You've heard me talk about the book by Ted and Chris Stewart, The Miracle of Freedom, the 7 tipping points that saved the world. How fragile, or how rare, liberty and freedom is. Only 4.5% of the people that have ever lived on the planet, estimated at 100 billion through the beginning of time to today, have ever had what we've had. 80% of us are alive today. It is fragile. It is very rare what we experience, the thought of self-governing. And I want to, just for perspective, there's roughly 8 billion people in the world, John. 8 billion people. America is at most 3 to 3.5% of the entire world's population. The miracle of freedom is being amplified by the founding of this country through the Declaration of Independence, the U.S. Constitution, and the principles espoused in that has spread around the world and created the liberal democracies that we see. So we're a very small portion of the world population. And if America fails, the rest of the world will fail too. And you're going to have the authoritarianism of a communist regime, or authoritarianism of a theocracy like Iran or North Korea, dictating how you live in your lives. I don't think anybody wants that. I know they don't. Even the people in those countries don't want that. They're trying to get out of that. That's why you don't see people migrating to North Korea or any of those other countries. They want to get out of those. They want to come here. And it's because of those principles. That's what's at stake. That's why we're here. That's why we're here to educate, motivate, and activate people. So, yeah, it does. It is rare, and people need to wake up because we just can't go through life complacent.
Absolutely. I want to play another video here, and this is from more recent past, although I think people seem to have forgotten this as well. And this is the planes crashing into what used to be the World Trade Center. It's amazing to me. I guess I'm getting older, how many young people don't even know what I'm talking about. But check this video out. We'll play it for a few seconds and come back and talk about it. Well, there we have it, ladies and gentlemen. And Ted, off the air, asked our producer, was he alive when that happened? And he said he was in the 5th grade. So that kind of puts it into perspective. But Ted, when I see that, I'm like, did you ever really think that after that happened, I mean, we were so unified as a country then, it's kind of scary that we lost that. But after that happened, in a few short years, since our producer was in the 5th grade, that this happened, if we can put that picture up in New York, that we would actually have Mondami be elected as mayor of New York City. And of course, he's pictured there with Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez, who is essentially a communist now. I mean, it's hard to believe that in that length of time, we went from the planes crashing into the World Trade Center to where New York City is politically right now in just a few short years.
Yeah, and 9/11, the Memorial Remembrance Day, will be upon us within a couple months. And I asked our Zach if he was alive then, and he said, yeah, he was in the 5th grade. But there's a whole generation that wasn't on the planet. They weren't born yet when that happened. So they don't have the same feeling, or that incident didn't have the same impact as it does on us that lived through that. And so here we are 25 years since then, and New York has elected a Muslim, nothing against Muslims, but a radical Muslim. And he's got an attack attitude going against people that have done well, that have lived the American dream, that worked hard, and they created the American dream. And yeah, they made a lot of money. But they have an attack on those kind of people. And people like AOC, they're communists, and they're coming out and they're not even hiding it anymore. And there was a time in our country where we went after communists in America. And unfortunately, we didn't carry that to completion. And so we've allowed these seeds to fester. It's kind of like a cancer, John. If you've got an adenocarcinoma type cancers are the worst. If you've got one of those and they do surgery and you ask the doc, would you get it all? He goes, well, we got most of it. That's not a good outcome, because it's going to smolder and it's going to come back. Well, we got a lot of the communists out of this country. We fought wars to prevent the spread of communism, but we've left parts of the tumor here in this country, and it's growing. And it got into our educational system that changed the fabric of education to our children. It got into our corporate world that created DEI, wokeism, and transgenderism, and all these things that go against nature. They go against nature's law. They go against the fabric and the traditions of this family. and they're smoldering. So how do you deal with that? It's kind of like Iran with a nuclear bomb that's been threatening us for 47 years. How long do you let something like Iran go on, or how long do you let a communist movement in America go on before you respond to it? And then how do you respond to it?
Yeah, absolutely. Well, Ted, I think the bottom line really is that's why shows like ours are vital, because people, they tend to forget, like we said earlier, how fragile this country is, and how, yes, we're strong, we're mighty, we're showing our military might right now, but the fabric that keeps this country going, the manning the political ramparts, because we already manned the real ones. That's what we got to get people to understand. We got to educate, motivate, and activate people, because so many people, not necessarily intentionally, but get caught up in everyday life that they don't realize just how special and therefore fragile America truly is.
Oh, it really is. And, I sent you that article about the Republican senator suggests Pamela J. Paul and other Democrats may be guilty of treason over Cuba talks. Here you've got two sitting members of Congress, Ilhan Omar, imagine that, and Pamela Jayapal out of Washington State, who is a very liberal progressive, and I'm going to call her dangerous because she is so anti-American that she and Ilhan Omar went down to Cuba to try to get oil into Cuba from Mexico and Canada. And that is really going against the doctrine or the stance of the United States of America. And so basically, they are abetting and siding with a communist regime that represses their own people in Cuba. And that's why we have so many people fleeing Cuba. And we know the story about, where they came to. And I've got two members of Congress that are cozying up with a communist regime. And this Republican senator says that we need to look at these as acts of treason. And I hope they do. I hope they don't have a long, drawn out oversight committee hearing on what they did. I hope they say, yes, this was an act of treason, throw them out of Congress, and deport Ilhan Omar, take her citizenship away.
Well, when you were talking about that, and I read that article, and it is pretty fascinating and scary at the same time. But what people really need to look at when they're seeing this, and all the, Cubans are a great example. It's really kind of sad and a bit scary that people outside of America know how special America is more than people who are born and raised here are. Because you take that average, because I've talked to a lot of people, Cuban, and I know a lot that have come over here, in multiple different waves, being here in Florida, and they know just how special this country is why they're coming here. No one is fleeing America except the Hollywood elites, and they're just doing it for publicity. And most of them don't even do it. They just talk about it. But the people
I'll
outside
encourage
of America
them to keep doing it.
know more about the specialness and the privilege of being an American than a lot of Americans do. And that's what makes our show so special, because we're trying to make sure that American people know just how special it is to be here and how fragile it is.
Oh, John, you're too humble. This show's special because you're on it. You're the salty dog.
Well, I do have a bit of good news before we run out of time, Ted, because there's this thought out there that the MAGA is over, that Trump's influence is over and waning and all that. But there were some results in the primaries. We had a few primaries lately. Indiana, for instance, there was this state senators up there that voted Republicans, 7 of them, that voted against the redistricting. Whether that was good or bad is a whole nother subject. But they were all up for re-election, and Trump endorsed candidates against them in every race, and 6 of the 7 were defeated in the primary. And of course, Vivek in the Ohio governor's race won every single county in Ohio. Hopefully he'll be the next governor there. Yeah, I mean, that's amazing to win every single county. He won almost every, if not every precinct. So Trump's endorsement still carries a lot of weight. I think the real question is, are people going to be so hungry for normalcy? You know, in other words, the Democrats, I've said this before, and I'll turn it back to you, Ted, that I think their main political strategy is to make life so chaotic that we'll vote for anything that returns us back to some sense of normalcy, because it's the Democrats that are out bum rushing the streets and everything. And I worry about that because I think the average American might not see it that way.
Well, it is. And that's the classic example of the Overton box. You know, if you want to shift sentiment and perspectives and support to your cause, make it really radical and run real hard to the left. And then when it comes back, it's not as far back to the right, but it's more farther, it's closer to the left of what you wanted. And that's exactly what they're doing. And that's where, you know, people have to keep things in perspective. And you do a great job of writing the notes for the show of talking about, it's just like the atomic bomb drills, run and duck, or duck and run, whatever you can do first. Those things are real. I remember growing up in that era where we were doing that. People were putting in bomb shelters. I still remember my mom and dad with the neighbors in Minnesota during the Cuban Missile Crisis talking about these things, and the fear going into a kid of saying, golly, this is really terrible, you know, and you're worried about that. But then you come up and you grow up and you realize that things usually don't change real rapidly, but they can. So our job is to make the nation, our constitutional republic, stronger, more productive, and we're going to stand out more and more as that beacon on the hill if we stay the course. If we get the liberals back in, or the communists, the progressives, this nation will forever change. And then you know what comes after that? They burn the books, basically. They get rid of history and rewrite it, and they'll tell you how great it is since they came into power. And that'll be forgotten for generations, if not centuries. And that would be a sad mark on humanity. We're not perfect, but we've come a long way from the dark ages. We've come a long way from Xi Jinping thought and the theocracies of Iran. And just China, this, I know you're going to bring that up, right? With Trump meeting with him.
Well, we're about out of time, but yeah, he's going to be meeting with him next week.
Oh, yeah,
so maybe we'll
are.
cover that on Monday.
Let's cover that on Monday, because this is a very important conversation to have about China. They are not our friends. Their goal is to take over the world, and I'll leave it at that. We'll talk more about that on Monday. Back to you, John.
Well, I hope you've enjoyed what we're doing today. Enjoyed the show. Please like it, share it far and wide. Tell your friends, make the call and be a supporter of the show. Call Freddie. Thanks to Archer Automotive, our newest sponsor. And I wish everybody a happy Mother's Day. Kiss your mom, hug her. I wish I could. Mine passed a few years ago, so don't take that for granted. And Ted, I wish you a great weekend. Take us out, sir.
No, it's Mother's Day, and the kids are coming up to visit their mother, my wife, Carolyn, and her birthday is on May 11th. So it's a special weekend for us. So God bless all of you. God bless the mothers. Happy Mother's Day, and we'll see you Monday. Take care.
All right, well, good show. Yeah, I thought about China, but since he's going next week, we'll make that a big topic of Monday's show.
I tell you what, you know, they caught that Iranian tanker that had all the stuff in there from China. And China controls the rare earth minerals. They control the pharmaceuticals in the world. They control over 90% of the drones that are produced in the world. China controls. And they're funding and giving supplies to Iran against us. They're doing the same thing with Russia.